every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
EMIY Apparel. Encourage me. I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading EMIY, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIY TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Surprise! Happy holidays to you. And I am running solo today while Calvin Mann is getting some much needed rest. And I am your host for today, Heather Heteru. I am not only a personal change coach and executive director of Encourage Me, I'm Young. I am also one of the co-hosts to Put Your Family First podcast, and happy to be here with you today. And of course, our extraordinary engineer, Miss Monique, in the background with her big, beautiful smile, helping to help facilitate this conversation today. I wanted to talk about, and I had this conversation earlier, but I wanted to talk about how to avoid arguments during the holiday season and give you some tools, some background, and an opportunity to kind of look at how we are enduring the holidays differently. Okay, and give you some insight to how some of us are managing and navigating, and some things that we can do together to help support one another. I mean, not just you as an individual or your family, but as a community. How can we support each other through this very joyous time for many and very difficult time for some? And so I want us to just bring and lift up a few pieces of information as we kind of take this journey together and recognize that we are coming to a close of a season, not just a close of a year, but the close of a season for many of us. People are excited to release 2023, whether it is the experiences of losses that we experienced this year. There were a lot of losses this year. There were in previous years, but 2023 was a little bit different because it seems like just as things were leveling out, we all started to face some challenges and losses that we may not have seen before, even in our lifetime at this extreme. We lost a lot of our favorite actors and actresses these seasons. And musicians. We had a lot of transitions this year. And so I just want to acknowledge that even though those people may have been just icons for us, they were a part of us. And so when you have a favorite somebody, whether that's a favorite actor or actress or singer, that becomes a part of your culture. That becomes a part of your history. That becomes a part of you. And so as we have those losses, even in addition to our family, friends, and loved ones, it still impacts us in a really meaningful way. And so just to put that out there first, that loss and grief can cause us to be even more sensitive. It can cause us to be a little bit more on edge than normal. The stress of not expressing the anger or the shock and the losses is a part of somehow and sometimes how we experience our triggers in the season. So we talked a lot about triggers in our last episode. So hopefully you were listening and you had a kind of a background on what to expect in terms of triggers. But we're just going to take it to the next step and talk about some of the things that get us make us feel defensive or make us feel angry or triggered during the holiday season. So sometimes when we don't have what we feel like is enough, and I'm saying enough in terms of financial resources or resources in general, when we feel that we don't have enough and somebody keeps pushing you to do something outside of what you're capable of doing, that can sometimes trigger us to lash out or say things out of a reaction as opposed to how you really feel. So I want us to take a moment to make sure that we do a self-check, especially when you feel that you're being triggered about something. Stop, pause, take a 3-second deep breath, and then respond, because it gives your brain the oxygen. The deep breath helps that oxygen to flow, so you're not as reactive and the words don't come out before you take that deep breath. So you can send oxygen to the brain and say, okay, let's come with a better reply. And honesty is a good one sometimes. It's how you express that honesty. But to say, I don't have it like that right now, instead of saying, well, if you did this and you didn't do that, instead of having an outrageous response, you can be calm and say, well, we don't have it like that, or we're not able to do that right now. And be honest about that. People understand and appreciate when you don't have something. When you try to cover up that you don't have it with another excuse, people can see through that too. And so people are more offended by the excuse you might come up with as opposed to the truth that you could just offer, and it could cut everything else off from there. There doesn't have to be a follow-up explanation. That is the answer. So it's not too much pushback somebody can give you when you say, I don't have it like that right now. Most they can give you or should give you is crickets. So that's nothing. You have no response to that. Or if you know somebody is low on resources or having a difficulty, then offer it to them as opposed to asking them if they need it. We have a tendency to know that somebody needs something, but we ask you anyway. Instead of just offering, here, this is something for you. You don't have to explain it. You can just gift it. I'm saying gift. GIFT, gift it and walk away. You know they have a need. You don't have to guess. You don't have to, do you need something did you need something this season? No, if you know that they need, gift it to them. That means gifting it without an expectation of getting it back or somebody returning it back to you. That is another way to kind of help intermediate those types of arguments or triggers before they even start. So we can just be thoughtful, and we can be courteous, and we can be giving as a way to help reduce arguments, right? So a couple other things I do want us to be aware of, that not only during the holiday season, when the holiday season is typically peaking, there are a lot of people who feel very much alone during the holiday season. They feel, for whatever reasons, and wherever they are in their journey, they may feel that they're alone. So this is a good time to make phone calls, to make visits, and go and see about people you care about. See about people you know who may have had losses this year, who may have had breakups this year, who may have had some not the most exciting experiences leading into December. So this is a good time to reach out to people. This is a good time to buy a bunch of holiday greeting cards and hand deliver to make sure that those people are doing okay. It's a better time to check in on our elders, either the ones that you know that may be living alone. Check in on those elders who have caregivers. And sometimes, caregivers get stressed out too. So you might want to just say to your caregiver, especially somebody you know who has been there, why don't you take a break for a couple of hours and let me sit with our loved one? Give them a break. Gift them a break so that they won't have a mental break, because it's not easy being a caregiver. So if you've been a caregiver for a loved one, especially as they're aging and their memory may not be as sharp as it once was, and their patience may not be as as kind and gentle as it was at once upon a time. They may have been losing those things. And so if a caregiver is constantly hearing a barrage of difficult things to hear, like no all the time, or I don't want that, or you're stupid, or, and sometimes, people who are going through are reactionary. And so we have to take that into account with our elders too, that their memories and because there's some aging to even the frontal lobe, the thing that helps to restrain your behaviors or to keep you in check. As that ages, it also can deteriorate. So, and we want to make sure that, we understand that they don't have the capacity at sometimes to be able to respond in a more pleasant and thoughtful way. And sometimes it's that they don't have any control over that. It's just how it comes out. It's not personal to you. It's just how it comes up and comes out. And if you have, family members that are aging like that, or may have dementia or Alzheimer's or in the process of those things, the expectation for them to be kind and courteous all the time, or even to recognize us sometimes, that's a lot to ask. And so just to be aware that that's not personal, and it's not personal to you. It is just one of the symptoms of aging. Okay. So if you have that as a mindset, then you can be less offended by how somebody responds. But it doesn't mean that you don't go see about them. And it doesn't mean that you don't give your caregivers a break. Give your caregivers a break. Gift them time for themselves during this holiday season, and gift them for their care. It's always nice to receive acknowledgement for doing what you do, even though you may feel that it's your responsibility to do it. It's nice to gift those people just for that, just to give them that extra something special to let them know that what they're doing is not unappreciated or unnoticed. So keep those things in mind, because it really helps to give the caregiver something good to look forward to, whether that's a wrapped gift, whether it's a phone call or a visit, or that time that you can gift them for themselves during the holiday season. Some awareness items is that if you didn't know, 3 out of every 5 individuals are suffering from some type of mental or physical health challenge. And a lot of us don't necessarily advertise that. We don't wear a sign that says, "Hi, my name is Heather. I'm having a mental health challenge." It's not that it's so obvious to see. Sometimes it is, but most of the times it's not things that you can necessarily see. You may not know that I'm dealing with back pain or knee pain or hip pain, and I'm just trying to push through every day. You may not know that, and you may not need to know that, but do extend the kindness for me if I'm short in my conversation, or if I seem like I'm rushing or pressing through something. It's not personal to you. A lot of us have those things going on, and you just don't know the backstory, and we don't feel it's necessary to tell you that, even though we might be responding from a certain space of either distance or space of pain or space of whatever we're going through. Give people the benefit of the doubt that how they're responding may be due to something other than what you can see. And it may not have anything at all to do with you. So keep that in mind, and keep that in the back of your mind that 3 out of every 5, and the numbers may be different now, but at least 3 out of every 5 people are dealing with 1, a mental health challenge, and 2, a possible physical health challenges that is causing them some difficulty. Whether it's, and then even more of us are undiagnosed. So we have issues and have never gotten support or help for those issues. So for those of you who know that about yourself, let us make 2024 the year that we get help. The year that we seek counseling, therapy, we go to the doctor, We actually keep those routine checkups and appointments, the breast exams, as uncomfortable as those things are, the colonoscopies, all of those things that help us maintain and understand our bodies. Let's make sure we're doing that. But let's also make sure we're pouring good things into our bodies. Let's make sure that we're pouring water. Starting off with the basics, pouring water into us so that we are hydrated and making good decisions, so that we are hydrating our bodies and our organs so that they function properly and they're not dehydrating and misfunctioning. Start with just water. Water is such a life giver. We were born in it. We lived in it in our mother's wombs for months, and it is what was the sustaining force for us. The water of life is very much important and very much a part of our everyday. Make sure you stay hydrated, okay? And even when you feel an argument coming up, it's the best time to drink some water. When you're feeling upset, drink some water. When you're feeling confused, drink some water. Before you make a decision, drink some water. We need to be hydrated. Again, you don't know when your body is dehydrated always, so you need to make sure that you're hydrating, because if you're not hydrated, your body is in survival and crisis mode. That means it's not focusing on the decisions that you have to make. It's not focusing on logic or reason. It's just focused on, I need some help. I need to hydrate. And that is your body's primary function. It shifts. Everything else becomes secondary to your hydrating. So keep hydrated. All right. And so just acknowledging that everybody deals with difficulties and challenges differently. So keeping that as our framework, that how one person solves or resolves a problem may be different from how another person solves and resolves a problem. So give people the space to make those kinds of decisions, again, without making it personal to you, but listening. I think that we could solve a lot of problems if we listen first before we respond. And in the listening, what are the things that we're listening for? We're listening for the person's feelings and what is impacting the person's feelings. Outside of all the other colorful metaphors they may be using, outside of all of the pointing the fingers at you, what do you hear the person saying about how they feel? And if we're listening and we're really listening, we may find that it's somebody that's afraid. We may find that it's somebody that is confused. We may find that it's somebody who is in a space that they've never been in before. And so there are some fears that may be underlying fears that may be coming to the surface, and it surfaces in the form of an argument, or it surfaces in the form of a level of confusion, and it requires, or I'm using air quotes, it requires that a person try to find the cause. And so they may think that the cause is you. And so, but it doesn't mean that that's necessarily so. We just have to listen for what the real truth is. And it's a skill that we develop over time. Listening is a gift and a skill. So if you haven't yet mastered that skill, then do the self-work to master it. It's an amazing class that's being offered by the Wisdom Institute called The Art of Listening. I've gone through a few of the sessions. It's an amazing way to hear what people are really saying and to let people know that you hear what they are saying. And it's sometimes outside of the details that we give, but it is the expression of what are they really saying to you? And can you really hear that? In the midst of all of the other static that may be in the conversation, can you lift out enough of the truth of what they're feeling to be able to acknowledge who they are and what they're going through? You don't have to agree or disagree. That's another amazing thing about listening. It's not necessarily that you have to agree with them or disagree. The object first is to listen and identify what's being said. And so if we're able to just do that part, we can eliminate probably 30% of the arguments. But I'm going to give you some tools right now to eliminate as many arguments as you can get down to maybe 1 or 2 really good arguments throughout the holiday season without it ruining your holiday. All right, so these are the 3 types of reasonings that I teach these in workshops, and I teach these in my classes. I think it's an essential tool. Reasoning is an essential tool that everybody needs. And so I'm going to give you some of my tools and tips on how to do it. So if you don't have paper and pen, I'm going to ask you to take a minute while I get a sip of water and get some your paper and pen, because you're going to need it for this. It's really simple steps, but I think you might need to write some of the details down. So, see, I'm hydrating too. Always make sure our engineer is hydrated. Because she has a lot of buttons to push. She has a lot of work to do behind the scenes. So these are the 3 types of reasoning. 1 is called consensus. 2 is subjective reasoning. And 3 is objective reasoning. All right, let me go on again. So 1 is consensus. 2 is subjective reasoning, and 3 is objective reasoning. I'm going to tell you why these are important. 1, for subjective and objective reasoning, the first part of that is that you're trying to reach an agreement. You're trying to reach an agreement on something. And so it's important when you're trying to reach an agreement that there are some guidelines to what that's going to look like. And so agreement not being yes or no, agreement being, let's come to an understanding of what are we talking about. Let's clarify what are we talking about first. Then we start to go into our reasoning process. So if you are using subjective reasoning, and this is really what gets a lot of us in trouble, this is 50% of our arguments amongst one another, is our subjective reasoning, because the second part of subjective reasoning is understanding that it's based on your opinions, your experiences, your ideas, and your thoughts. That's what it's based on. Subjective reasoning is based on my experience, how I feel, what I think, and we use that a lot. And in subjective reasoning, we use this quite a bit. We say, I know for a fact. And we base everything on that statement. I know for a fact that whatever my thought, my opinion, my idea, my experience is. It does not make it it makes it real for you. That's what's important for you to know, that it makes it real for you, but it doesn't make it a fact for everybody. It doesn't make it the same thing that somebody else should feel, should do as a result of your experience, your thought, or your idea. That's a really important piece, because we can get so caught up in our subjective thinking. And I'm going to tell you the next part you're going to really be really shocked about. But because of our subjective reasoning, we can argue with people about their opinions. We can tell them what they should be thinking, what they should be doing based on our opinion or based on their opinion. And we get into these long, heated arguments on opinions and thoughts and a person's experience. It does not make it a blanket fact. It doesn't necessarily have to be logical whatsoever. And so if you're expecting logic to come out of somebody's subjective thoughts or reasoning, you may be setting yourself up for another argument. And we don't want to do that. Because some of the ways it comes out in the holiday, what are some of the conversations that come out in the holiday? The types of gifts that you might give or receive. Somebody's cooking. We have all these conversations and debates about somebody's cooking. So-and-so makes the best macaroni and cheese. No, they don't. I make the best macaroni and cheese. Okay. The answer is you are correct. If you think you make the best macaroni and cheese, then you make for you the best macaroni and cheese. Why am I arguing with you about your opinion? there's no argument in your opinion, right? Because it's yours. It belongs to you. What you're trying to do, however, is convince me that your opinion fits my narrative as well. This is where we get into trouble. Making my opinion fit your narrative, or your opinion fit my narrative. And we should be okay with you having your opinion and I have mine. That will eliminate so many arguments. But on top of the narratives that we are trying to make fact, we have the ego involved, which means simply your need to be right about everything that you say. The ego causes more arguments and more fights than most anything else when we're talking about subjective reasoning. What that sounds like is, I'm going to keep on talking to you until you admit to me that what I said to you is right. Now, whether that's my thought, my experience, my opinion, my idea, I need for you to acknowledge, say out loud to everybody so that they are a witness to the fact that I'm right and you're wrong. And we wait and we argue and we go back and forth. And if we get too heated about it, I'll smack you into thinking that it's right. I'll back you up into a corner and make you fight me about me being right. We see this so much. We see this a lot in families, right? No, you were the one that was a bully. No, you were the one that was the bully. I gotta be right. Both of you were bullies. More than likely in different ways, but both of you may have been bullies. But you don't see yourself as a bully, and the other person doesn't see themselves as a bully. But we're going to go back and forth until somebody is going to accept the responsibility for dogged being a bully. And we go back and forth and round, and everybody's getting upset. And the two people see everybody riled up, but they don't stop because they haven't been acknowledged as being right. And so their ego is completely out of control. And the environment that we're in, everybody's upset. People are screaming and yelling at each. This is the foundation during holiday seasons and beyond for our arguments, and it can be avoided. And so I know I've pulled out a lot of examples today around how we can avoid the arguments during the holiday. This subjective reasoning, understanding that process is really, really, really important. And so it's a tool that everybody needs in your tool bag. So I'm going to give you the 3 steps. The first thing that you're trying to do and understand is that it's a thought process. Subjective reasoning is a thought process. The second thing that you're trying to do is basically when we talk about the process of your thinking. So your thoughts, examining your experiences, your ideas, and your opinions. Those things are important to the person who they belong to. And it's not saying that they're not important. However, it is not somebody else's narrative. And the idea of forcing your narrative, your thought, your idea, your opinion on somebody else is very dangerous. You can share your ideas, but when you have an expectation that everything that you say and you do is right, then you run into another opportunity to set up. It's a setup. We have to recognize that our thoughts and opinions do not make or break a situation or a circumstance. It is ours, and we can own that, but you can't force it on somebody else. It's not a blanket statement, a narrative that, based on your thoughts and your opinion, make it real. So, and then the final part of that scenario is that you have a need to be right. So that means if you have a need to be right, you can't be wrong, and then therefore you feel like you can't back down. It's okay to say, this is how I feel, and that's that. You don't have to have somebody else to validate you and how you feel, because it's how you feel. And so once you have that understanding that you can validate yourself and say, well, this is just how I feel. This is just my opinion. and be done. Let it be just your opinion, okay? And so when we talk about objective reasoning, and this is where there's a group of people who use facts and even logic to make their point. When we talk about facts, facts always come from a credible source. A credible source. And that credible source is typically an authority, an institution. Like I was talking earlier today about people who say, oh, it snowed on the 28th of December. It's going to snow on Christmas. There's no real fact behind that. It could be a feeling. Because remember, we have thoughts and opinions and experience. Well, in 2012, on my birthday, it snowed on the 18th, and then that meant it was going to snow on Christmas. Well, that might have been an experience you had, but you can't use that experience as a blanket narrative. Facts, again, come from institutions. They come from an authority. They come from somebody who's a subject matter expert. So the person that I would accept as an authority would be the Weather Channel, meteorologists. This is what they study. This is what they do every day of their lives, is look at weather patterns to predict what type of weather to expect when. That is an authority. That means they have, it's an institution behind that authority, meaning that there are tools and systems that track weather patterns, and that's what they show you when they have on the green screen when you're watching the weather. They show you how the clouds are moving across the sky. They show you how the precipitation is this, and the wind strength is that, or the wind speeds are this and that. Those are authorities. So if you're hearing from the weather, then more than likely, as the subject matter experts, as an institution, as an authority, they're more likely to be right about the weather than Aunt Rose, because she felt it in her bones. It was going to snow on Christmas. We're not arguing her opinion or her thought. We're just saying that a fact comes from an institution, a subject matter expert, an authority, somebody who actually has studied this, have ownership over the information or the tools that are used to understand whatever that phenomena is we're trying to decide on, right? Just because you feel it in your bones, and I get it. That's my experience too. I had back surgery young in my life, so I feel when the weather changes in my body. It gets really, really stiff, and it takes a lot more effort to move. I get that. I can say, but this is only based on my experience. It's not based on fact, right? Mm-hmm. In my experience, when the weather is about to change, I feel it in my body. I feel a stiffness in my back, from my neck to my spine. I feel that a shift happening. Can I make a blanket statement and say, it's a fact that the weather is going to change today? Can I make that everybody's narrative? No, I cannot. I can only make that my opinion and share my opinion, not force my opinion. Very, very different. Very, very different. And so as we go into the holiday season, all of those bets that Aunt Becky is going to make, that dry cornbread with raisins in it is okay, and that you don't like, but Aunt Becky, because nobody said Aunt Becky, when she asked how you like that cornbread with the raisins, everybody's like, So Aunt Becky assumes that everybody likes cornbread with raisins. So nobody's told Aunt Becky for the last 5 years, please don't bring the cornbread with the raisins in it. Now, whose job is that? Probably Aunt Becky's closest relatives might be the one to say that. Not the lower level, not the nieces and nephews, not the spouses of every. No. Probably Aunt Becky's sister needs to say, girl, stop bringing that cornbread with the raisins. Nobody likes raisins and cornbread. Like, say that, right? But it needs to also come from the right source. Somebody who has a way of sharing information where it can be received and is not offensive. Those are the people who need to be talking most. Not the ones that offend and hurt people's feelings. Those are not the ones that need to be sharing information like that. So the messenger, sometimes the messenger is important as well. So if you happen to be the messenger, make sure you're sharing it in a way that is respectful. One, that is honest enough to make the point, but not to hurt and harm the person that's receiving the information. So just a few tools. And so I want to also talk about this last type of reasoning, which I think everybody is going to need, because this is an alternative to compromise. A lot of people feel like compromising is a tool to use. And I would agree that compromise is a tool to use when the outcome is not hurtful to you or somebody who is the other party. If it really doesn't matter to you, then compromise, or the other person, then compromise could be an answer. So we had a conversation, I was having this earlier, about a compromise with going to a movie. Your compromise might be The Color Purple versus Batman 16, whatever Batman is out now. So you might want to see The Color Purple. The other person might want to see Batman. So because the objective is that you actually just spend time together. You wanted to spend time together at the movies. So is it a deal breaker that you go see Batman or Color Purple? Because you could actually go back and see either of them on your next movie date. So what do? Can you compromise on that? Or is that one of the things that is that you do not want to compromise on? In the event you are trying to build a relationship, a healthy relationship, and get to know somebody, regardless of if it's a romantic relationship or a friendship or this is a family relationship, it doesn't matter. When you use consensus, it is a more thoughtful process. It is trying to get to know the person better and see what's under their decision. So if I'm saying that I don't want to compromise, I want us both to go see The Color Purple. Maybe for you, The Color Purple has 3 of your relatives in the movie and you didn't want to say anything, or you were promised a secrecy and you couldn't say anything, but you wanted the person to go with you so they could see your relatives in the movie. Like, that's my cousin right there sitting next to it, right? So maybe that was the real reason why you wanted to go see The Color Purple. And now would be a good time to tell that person you don't want to go see Batman because you have 3 family members in The Color Purple and you wanted that person to see them with you. When we just tell a bit more of the story, that's a little deeper than I just really want to see The Color Purple. That's allowing the person who you're connecting to or talking to, or maybe at this point a compromise with, it offers the reason why it's so important to you. Give them a reason. So that's what consensus does. Consensus is about an agreement. That's one of the first things you're trying to do, is come to an agreement. The second thing that you're trying to do is make sure you're hearing everybody's thoughts, everybody's opinions about what you're agreeing to. People say no, or people take a position, a very strong position when we're talking about compromise. When they take a very strong position about something and you don't understand why, and the answer that they're giving, like, because I said so, or because that's just how I feel, that means it requires some deeper diving, that there's something more important and substantial that that person is not revealing. And asking the right questions, or saying, I really want to know why you feel so strongly about point A or point B. Because the real solution is in their response. If they're not telling you, then that means it's probably deeper than just a surface answer, which was given. So once you make sure that you hear the person's thoughts and opinions, it gives you a lot more information to make a choice, not a compromise, because now you have more information, and maybe you have shared more information as to why it's so important to you to do a certain thing or make a certain choice. When we don't do that, we hide all of the deeper details or the more meaningful things. Maybe you don't want to see the color purple because there's a space in there that triggers a memory for you, a painful memory for you. And that's your real reason for not wanting to see the color purple. That makes a lot more sense than just saying because I just don't want to see it. That's not a real answer. That's a cover-up. We have to be aware of the cover-up, the cover stories that we often give as opposed to sharing our deeper truth. When, again, you use this technique, especially consensus, when you're trying to get to know somebody better or get to the deeper meaning for yourself or for the other party. This will help us to be better at understanding versus arguing, especially during the holiday season. One person wants a real Christmas tree. One person wants a fake tree. What's the difference? Why do you have to have a real tree? Well, when I was growing up, we never even had a tree. And so I made a promise to myself that every year I'm going to have a real Christmas tree. Okay, well, that's a little bit more information than just because I said so or because I do. That's no information. If you want people to get to know and understand you and your decision-making processes, you have to be able to talk about your why. You have to be able to reveal and uncover your why so that people can make better decisions and choices with enough information to support you as opposed to oppose you. Okay? That is one of the most incredible opportunities that we have as human beings, is to understand one another better and get beyond the surface of things. We give a lot of surface answers, whether we feel one way or the other, right? How you doing? Fine. And you suffering in silence. You're not fine. Your body is aching, not complaining. But how about giving somebody some indication that you're just going through? I'm just going through. I'm dealing with some physical health issues, but, I'm making it. I'm making the right decisions. I'm doing the right things. But your truth is that I'm in pain. I'm in pain. What? So how a person might be able to support you, it may not be in that moment. Maybe it's in the future moments. Maybe they may see you walking somewhere and now you have a ride because they understand that you're dealing with pain issues and they don't want you to suffer through another snowstorm where you have to walk and you're knowing you're in pain. Like, it's important. It is important. It is important to be able to have real conversations with people. And you don't have to reveal your full story or your backstory, but how do you be authentic in your truth? Because people will take you at that face value, and it may be something that you need, and you miss the opportunity because you never said. Well, it would be help. How you doing today? Well, I would be better if I had a car. I would be better if I had a turkey for Thanksgiving. I would be better if I had a couple of new gifts for my kids. It's nothing wrong with sharing that truth. It's nothing wrong with that. So just to say, fine, I'm good, your blessing could be in the response that you give. You never know. And they say what? Because you never asked? You never know because you never asked? Don't let that be your narrative over and over and over and over again. For pride being an answer. Giving a prideful answer. Oh, I'm good. I'm blessed and highly favored. Dude, you got holes in your shoes. Dude, you don't have boots on and it's snow up to your ankles. Dude, no. You might be blessed, but I can be a part of that blessing if you give me the opportunity instead of faking the funk and act like everything is okay when it's not. When you need help, there's a way that you can express that truth so that it doesn't become harm to you. It doesn't become harm, but can help you in the ways that you need to be helped. So, yeah, I know these are some things that we experience in the holiday season. It's important to utilize new tools every year. It's important to the things that we've done last year that may have caused harm, that may have took our blessings in a different direction. But we can change those things. And this holiday season, we have an opportunity to. There are a lot of things that are going on and a lot of people that are going through. If you don't check on them and if you don't reveal some of the things that you have need of, we're not changing our narrative. We're participating in a cover-up. There are enough cover-ups going on in the world without us contributing to that. We want you to be at your best. And so this holiday season, and this is coming from our Encourage Me I'm Young team. This is coming from Your Inspired Journey. This is coming from Good Fathers Only. These are all of the organizations that are a part of our collective. Businesses, EMIY Apparel, just to let people know that when you're giving gifts this year, and I know that especially our kids, they love video games and they love these high-end types of things. You're gifting them who you want them to become. So if you're giving them violent video games, you're gifting them what you want them to become. There is no way around that. Gift them something that's going to lift them and help invest in who they become. EMIY Apparel, and this is not just a shameless plug, it's real. When babies are born into my life, I try to give them the EMIY baby gear. We had some EMIY onesies that we put on babies, and these are brilliant babies. And just to be able to gift that to them, to invest in a message that they're wearing that's positive, that is unique to them, that is powerful, and is an expectation that we have of them. We want to encourage our children. It's the best way to raise them. We want to encourage one another. It's the best way to raise us up. Lift up each other. So be mindful of the gifts that you're giving and what they really mean. Gift them something that invests in who they can be and what they need. People need encouragement. We don't need to have Detroit against everybody. Why would you put that message? We want messages that bring people together. Win as one, Detroit. That brings us together, not divide us. There's enough division in our world, in our city, in our own lives. Let us build each other up. Starting for this holiday season, if you're giving gifts, give something with meaning that makes a person, not breaks a person. Give gifts that you want them to become, that you want to add to a person. So everything is not material. Everything is not material. So as you're looking at gift giving, whether it's Kwanzaa or Hanukkah or Christmas or whatever you might celebrate, even the New Year, gift them in a way that uplifts them. And let's continue to do that. So if you're looking at our brands, we have lots to choose from. You can go to EMIYapparel.com. That's the one place you can go to. Our program starts on January 14th, and we're going to take a little bit of a break over the next 2 weeks or so on our Mondays, but we'll be back to kick off the new year with you. But we at Your Inspired Journey, yes. Encourage Me I'm Young, yes. And even Good Fathers Only, another one of our opportunities in EMIY Apparel. We wish you the best of this holiday season. We want you to thrive. We want 2024 to be the best year yet. And we can make it that way when we look at the messages that we're sending, the messages that we're receiving, and how we're giving to one another. Take time and invest in others. Invest in you, invest in them, and let's continue to lift up each other in this holiday season and beyond. Take time and make sure that we are avoiding the arguments that have caused so many tragedies in our families and in our communities. We can do better, and we will. So this is Heather Heteru, not only your personal change coach, but Executive Director of Encourage Me Young, wishing you, and especially on behalf of our engineer, Monique, happy holidays. Thank you, and have a great day.